Cancer. There is a moment approaching at the end of May 2026, landing on a Sunday, that is going to function as a hinge in your life. I want to walk you through what kind of hinge it is going to be, because the title of this reading promises that it is not what you think, and I want to honor that promise honestly. The thing you may have been imagining when you saw the title is probably something dramatic, external, immediately visible, a specific event with a clear shape, something that you can point to afterward and say, that was the change. The actual change is going to be different. It is going to be more subtle in its initial expression and more profound in its eventual implications. I want to describe both halves of that, the subtle and the profound, because the relationship between them is the actual story. Let me start with what the Sunday at end of May 2026 will look like on its surface. The day itself will not announce itself as significant. You will go through it in a way that resembles many other days. You will do ordinary things. You will move through ordinary spaces. The hours will pass without obvious markers of any kind. If you are looking for fireworks on that Sunday, you may miss what actually occurs. The not having fireworks is the first feature of the change. The change is not theatrical. It is structural. Structural changes rarely announce themselves with theater. What will occur on that Sunday is something that happens in the depth of you, beneath your conscious awareness. Something will shift internally. A configuration that has been operating for a long time will reach the end of its operation, and a new configuration will begin. The transition between configurations is what the day marks. You may not feel the transition directly. You may simply notice, in the days and weeks that follow, that something is different. The difference will be hard to articulate at first. You will not be able to point to a specific event that caused it. The difference will simply be present, accumulating in its visibility until you can no longer ignore that something has changed. I want to describe what kind of configuration is ending and what kind is beginning, because the contrast between them is significant. The configuration that is ending is one that has had you holding a particular kind of vigilance about your life, not paranoid vigilance. More like the low-grade alertness of someone who has learned through experience that things can go wrong and who has been quietly monitoring the situation to make sure that wrongness does not catch them off guard. This vigilance has been adaptive. It has helped you function. It has prevented certain kinds of vulnerability that would have produced bad outcomes. But the vigilance has also cost you. It has consumed energy that could have been used for other things. It has kept you slightly braced in ways that have affected how you engage with people, with opportunities, with the present moment itself. The vigilance has had its time. Its time is now ending. The configuration that is beginning is one of relative settledness, not the settledness of someone who has stopped paying attention. The settledness of someone who has worked through enough of the underlying issues that the vigilance is no longer required at the level it has been operating. You will still pay attention. You will still notice things. You will still respond appropriately to actual problems when they arise. But the background hum of low-grade alertness will quiet. The quieting will free up significant interior resources that have been bound up in the alertness. You will have more available to you in the period after the transition than you have had available in a long time. I want to take a moment to address why the Sunday at end of May 2026 is the marker of this transition, rather than some other day. Energetic transitions of this kind often align with specific moments in time, even when the alignment is not visible to the conscious mind. The alignment is a feature of how the larger systems of life organize themselves. There are moments that are particularly fertile for certain kinds of completion, and the moment we are discussing is one of those. You do not need to fully understand why this specific moment carries this particular weight. You only need to know that it does, and that the carrying will produce the shift I have been describing, regardless of whether you actively participate in the marking. That said, you can participate in the marking if you choose to. The participation does not require any specific ritual or performance. It only requires a small awareness on the day that something is occurring. The awareness will help you receive what is occurring with more presence than you would have if you went through the day completely distracted. The presence will not change the underlying event, but it will deepen your relationship to the event. The deepening is one of the gifts available to you if you choose to receive it. I want to mention something about the period leading up to the Sunday. The period is not the same as the day itself, but it is connected to it. In the days and weeks before the marker, you may notice various preliminary signs that the transition is approaching. You may have dreams that have a particular quality of significance, even when their content is not memorable. You may notice that certain situations in your life seem to be coming to a head, demanding resolution rather than ongoing management. You may experience emotional surges that do not have obvious causes, surfacing things that you thought you had processed. All of these are preparatory phenomena. They are the system clearing space for what is approaching. You do not need to interpret each of them individually. You only need to recognize them as part of the larger movement. This is Cancer Tarot, and I want to share something about how to engage with the preparatory period that I think will serve you. Do not try to force any particular resolution. The things that are surfacing because they need to. Let them surface. Sit with what arises. Do not require yourself to solve everything before the marker. Some of what arises will resolve on its own through the surfacing. Some will resolve through the transition itself. Some will continue to need attention afterward. The important thing is not to suppress what is rising. The suppression would interfere with the natural completion that the transition is designed to produce. Allow the rising. The allowing is the practice of the preparatory period. I want to address something about what is unique about this transition compared to other transitions you may have experienced in your life. Most transitions involve a clear external change, a move, a new job, a relationship beginning or ending. The transition we are discussing does not have a clear external change at its core. The core is internal. The external dimensions of your life may continue, in many respects, to look similar after the transition as they did before. Your daily activities may not visibly shift. Your relationships may continue in their current configurations. The change is happening underneath, in the structure of how you engage with your own life, rather than in the surface arrangements. This kind of transition is sometimes harder to recognize than externally marked transitions, because the visible signs are subtle. You may, for a stretch of time after the transition, wonder whether anything actually happened. The wondering is normal. The transition is real, even if it does not immediately produce dramatic external evidence. The evidence will come, but it will come slowly, in the form of accumulating differences in how you experience your life, rather than in the form of major external events. I want to mention some of the specific differences you are likely to notice as the new configuration settles in. You will notice that you have more energy at the end of ordinary days than you used to have. The vigilance was consuming energy that you may not have realized was being consumed. With the vigilance relaxed, the energy will be available for other uses. You will notice that you are more present in conversations than you have been. The bracing was producing a slight detachment that you may not have consciously registered, and the absence of bracing will produce a more direct engagement. You will notice that small pleasures land more fully than they used to. The same small pleasures will produce more enjoyment because your nervous system will be more available to receive them. These differences will be small at first. They will accumulate over the weeks following the transition into a meaningfully different texture of daily experience. I want to address something specific about how this transition relates to the rest of your life. The transition is not isolated. It is one element of a larger movement that has been unfolding in your life over the recent period. The larger movement involves multiple dimensions, many of which I cannot describe in full detail here. The transition we are discussing is the specific moment when the inner configuration shifts. Other moments will follow in their own time that will shift other dimensions. Each moment contributes to the cumulative transformation. The cumulative transformation is what produces the version of your life that you are moving toward. I want to share an observation about how to think about your own role in the transition. You are not creating the transition through your effort. The transition is happening on its own schedule, driven by larger movements that include but are not limited to your individual choices. At the same time, you are not entirely passive. Your willingness to engage with what is occurring, your openness to the surfacing in the preparatory period, your presence to the marker when it arrives, all of these contribute to how the transition unfolds in your specific case. Your participation is real, even if it is not the primary driver. The participation matters. Bring what you can bring, the rest will be provided. I want to take a moment to address something about your own state of readiness. There may be a part of you that wonders whether you are ready for what is approaching, whether you have done enough work to be on the right side of the transition, whether you might somehow miss what is being offered if you are not prepared in some specific way. I want to address these concerns. The transition is not contingent on your readiness in the strict sense. It is going to occur regardless. What your readiness affects is the quality of your engagement with the transition, not whether the transition occurs. Even if you arrive at the marker in a state that feels imperfect, the transition will still produce its effects. The effects may take slightly longer to register if you are less open, but they will register. So you do not need to perform readiness. You only need to bring what you have to the moment, in whatever state you happen to be in. I want to mention something about a particular practice that may serve you in the period leading up to the marker. Take a few moments periodically to notice the texture of your interior life as it currently is, not to analyze it, just to notice it. What is the quality of your background thoughts? What is the level of tension in your body? What is the predominant emotional weather? The noticing does not need to be elaborate. A brief check-in. The purpose of the noticing is to establish a baseline that you can compare against after the transition to see what has changed. People who have not noticed the baseline often have difficulty registering the change because they cannot remember clearly enough what things were like before. The noticing prevents this. It gives you a reference point. This is Cancer Tarot, and I want to speak about why this kind of transition matters for the longer arc of your life. Transitions of internal configuration are often more important than external transitions, even though they are less visible. Internal configurations shape everything that follows them. They determine what kinds of experiences you can have, what kinds of relationships you can sustain, what kinds of decisions you are capable of making well. When the internal configuration shifts in a favorable direction, the entire downstream texture of your life shifts with it. You become capable of things you were not capable of before. Not because of any new skill, but because of the underlying conditions of your engagement with life. The shifting is foundational. It supports everything that comes after. I want to mention something about how the transition will affect specific dimensions of your life beyond the general internal shift. In your relationships, you will find that you have more capacity for genuine engagement with others. The vigilance was producing a slight defensiveness that has been operating beneath your conscious awareness. With the vigilance relaxed, the defensiveness will diminish, and your relationships will benefit from a more open quality of engagement. People in your life will notice the change, even if they cannot name what is different. They will simply find you more available, more present, easier to be with. In your work, you will find that you have more capacity to engage with the actual substance of what you do, without the underlying anxiety that has been pulling some of your attention. The anxiety was not always loud, but it was present, and it was diverting some of your cognitive resources. With the anxiety quieting, the resources will be redirected to the work itself, and your output will improve in subtle but real ways. The improvement will be noticed by others, although the cause will not be obvious to them. In your relationship to yourself, you will find that you are kinder. The vigilance was producing a kind of internal critic that has been monitoring you for signs of failure. With the vigilance relaxed, the critic will quiet, and your interior self talk will become more compassionate. The compassion will allow you to take small risks that the critic was preventing. The risks will produce growth. The growth will, in turn, produce further development of the kinder relationship to yourself. The cycle is self reinforcing. I want to address a possible concern. There may be a part of you that worries about losing the vigilance because the vigilance has felt like protection. The worry is understandable. Vigilance does provide a kind of protection, and giving it up can feel risky. But the vigilance you are losing is not the only form of protection available to you. The protection that will replace it is more sustainable. It comes from a settled foundation of self-knowledge and self-trust, rather than from constant monitoring of potential threats. The settled protection is, in fact, more reliable than the vigilance was. The vigilance was responsive only to threats that arose in real time. The settled protection is structural, available even when threats have not yet arisen. You will be more protected after the transition, not less, even though the form of protection will be different. I want to mention something about how to handle the moments after you recognize that the transition has occurred. There may be a stretch of time, perhaps a few days, perhaps longer, during which you feel slightly disoriented as the new configuration installs itself. The disorientation is not unpleasant, but it is unfamiliar. You may find yourself uncertain about what to do with the resources that the relaxed vigilance has freed up. You may find yourself unsure how to engage with situations that the previous vigilance would have automatically processed. The uncertainty is normal. It will resolve as the new configuration becomes more familiar. In the meantime, allow the uncertainty. Do not rush to fill the space with new activities. The space is part of how the new configuration becomes available to you. I want to share something specific about the period of the few weeks immediately after the Sunday at end of May, 2026. The period will have its own texture. You will be in a phase of integration. The integration involves your nervous system, learning the new configuration, your habits adjusting to it, your sense of self updating to reflect it. The integration is gradual. Do not expect it to be complete within days. It will take weeks, perhaps months, to fully settle. Each week will produce small additional confirmations that the new configuration is real and that you can rely on it. The confirmations will compound. By the time several months have passed from the marker, the new configuration will feel like your default state, and you will look back on the previous configuration with mild surprise that you used to operate that way. I want to address something about what will become possible in the new configuration that was not possible in the previous one. You will be able to take certain risks that the vigilance was preventing, not reckless risks, calibrated risks, where the calculation includes a fuller sense of what is available to you. The previous vigilance was biased toward avoiding loss, even at the cost of foregoing significant gains. The new configuration is more balanced. It can recognize when a potential gain is worth the associated risk, and it can support you in pursuing the gain. The pursuing will produce outcomes that the previous configuration would not have allowed. The outcomes will be visible in your external life over the months following the integration, even though they are produced by the internal change. I want to mention something specific about the dimension of love and relationships, because I sense this is one of the areas where the transition will produce particularly visible effects. The vigilance has been affecting how you engage with the possibility of significant love. It has been producing a slight tendency to keep options open in case the current one does not work out, to hold back full investment as a hedge against disappointment, to monitor closely for signs that things might go wrong. These tendencies have been protective, but they have also been preventing the kind of full engagement that significant love requires. With the vigilance relaxed, the tendencies will quiet, and you will become capable of a kind of romantic investment that has not previously been available to you. The capability will affect what relationships are possible going forward. The relationships that develop in the new configuration will be of a different quality than the relationships that developed in the previous one. I want to take a moment to address what may be a worry. You may wonder whether you will lose something important in the transition, whether some part of who you are will be sacrificed in the process. I want to address this directly. You will not lose anything important. What is ending is a particular adaptive pattern that has been useful but that is no longer necessary at the intensity at which you have been deploying it. The pattern is not who you are, it is something you have been doing. The you who has been doing it will continue. What changes is what you are doing. The doing will become lighter, more spacious, more aligned with who you actually are underneath the adaptive patterns. You will be more yourself after the transition, not less. Here on Cancer Tarot, I want to share what I think is the most important takeaway from this reading. The Sunday at end of May 2026 is a real marker. It is not arbitrary. It is the moment when a particular internal transition completes. The transition has been forming for a long time. Its completion will produce subtle but profound effects in your life, unfolding over the weeks and months that follow. You do not need to do anything specific to make the transition occur. It will occur on its own. What you can do is participate in it with awareness, allowing the surfacing in the preparatory period, being present to the marker when it arrives, and engaging openly with the integration in the period that follows. The participation will deepen the gifts of the transition without being required to produce them. I want to mention something about the larger frame within which this transition occurs. Your life has been moving toward a meaningfully different chapter for some time. The chapter is not yet fully visible. The transition we are discussing is one of the structural shifts that makes the new chapter possible. Other shifts will follow. The cumulative effect of all the shifts over the coming year will be a noticeably different texture of life. The texture will be more aligned with who you have been becoming. The alignment is one of the deeper rewards of all the work you have done, often invisibly, over the years that preceded this period. I want to acknowledge that you have done significant work to arrive at this moment. The work has included things you may not have thought of as work: the endurance of difficult periods, the maintenance of integrity in conditions that did not always reward it, the continuing development of yourself in directions that have not always been supported by your external circumstances. All of this constitutes work. The work has produced you in your current form, ready to receive what is approaching. You can take quiet satisfaction in what you have done. The satisfaction is appropriate. You did the work. The work is being recognized by the unfolding of conditions that will, in their own time, produce the visible results. I want to share one more thing about the marker itself. When the Sunday arrives, allow yourself a quiet moment at some point in the day to acknowledge that you are present at the marker. The acknowledgement is brief. It does not need to involve any particular ritual or performance. It can be a moment of internal noting. I am here. Something is shifting. I am open to what is occurring. The internal noting completes a small circuit between you and the transition that is happening. The circuit allows you to participate in the transition with full presence rather than passing through it distracted. The full presence is a gift you give to yourself and to the moment. The transition will occur whether you note it or not, but the noting deepens your relationship to your own life. People who pay attention to the moments that shape their lives tend to live with more sense of meaning than people who pass through such moments unconsciously. You can choose to pay attention. The choice is yours. The reward is a fuller participation in your own existence. You are at a meaningful threshold. The threshold is not visible to most of the people around you because it is internal, but it is real. The crossing is approaching. The crossing will produce effects that you will live with for the rest of your life in subtle but profound ways. Receive the crossing with the openness it deserves. Allow yourself to be changed by it. The change is good. The change is wanted by the deeper part of you that has been preparing for it. The change is yours. Walk into the period leading up to the Sunday with awareness that something significant is approaching, not anxious awareness. Open awareness. Notice what surfaces. Allow what surfaces. Engage with your life as you have been engaging, with the small additional dimension of attention to what is forming. The forming will continue. The arriving will occur. The crossing will be made. After the crossing, the new configuration will install itself, slowly and reliably, and you will become someone who lives more lightly, more openly, more in alignment with who you actually are. The massive change is happening. It is not what you think if you were expecting external drama. It is something better than external drama. It is the structural shift that produces all the external changes that follow, sustainably and reliably, in directions that serve who you are. The shift is approaching. The marker is set. The Sunday at end of May 2026 is where it lands. You will be there. You will know, even if subtly, that something has occurred. The knowing will be enough. The knowing will allow the rest to unfold in its own time, in its own form, in alignment with who you are becoming. Trust the unfolding. The unfolding is good. The unfolding is yours. Walk forward. The threshold is approaching. You are ready.